Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects millions of families, teen anxiety and depression. Now, I know it can feel like a really heavy and overwhelming subject, so our goal here is pretty simple. We want to help you understand the causes, learn how to spot the warning signs, and see the path to getting help. So, let's dive right in. To really get a sense of how big this is, let's just start with one number, 13.3%. Now, this data is from 2017, but it gives us a really important baseline. That year, that percentage meant 3.2 million teenagers in the US had a major depressive episode. I mean, that's millions of kids, millions of families, which is exactly why this conversation is so incredibly vital.
So, what are we actually talking about when we say teen depression or teen anxiety? Well, medically speaking, it's the same condition that adults experience. But, and this is the key thing, the symptoms can look completely different in a teenager. And that is the real challenge for parents, for teachers, for friends, learning how to recognize those unique signs.
To really understand those signs, we first have to get into the headspace of a teenager. I mean, what makes these years such a uniquely challenging and different kind of struggle?
Just think about it for a second. Teenagers are basically navigating a perfect storm. You've got massive hormonal changes, bodies that are developing, and brains that are literally still under construction. Now you combine all of that with intense peer pressure and just sky-high levels of stress, and you can start to see why this is a completely different ballgame than what adults go through.
Okay, so where does all this distress actually come from? Well, the thing is, it's almost never just one single thing. It's usually a really complex mix of a bunch of different factors. So let's try to unpack what those are.
Yeah, as you can see, there's no single culprit here. It's really like a complex puzzle with a lot of different pieces. Genetics can definitely play a role, especially if there's a family history of mood disorders. Things like trauma and the environment are huge factors. And as we're about to see, the biology of the teen brain itself can be a major contributor, sometimes right alongside things like substance misuse.
So when we talk about environment, that's a huge bucket, right? It can mean a difficult situation at home, like dealing with abuse, neglect, or a family divorce. It can be the social environment at school, bullying, and we all know how intense that can be, both in person and online, which can be absolutely relentless. And it can even include things like poverty or struggling with a learning disability, all things that just add another layer of stress day in and day out.
Now let's get into the biology, because this is fascinating. You see, a teenager's brain isn't just a mini adult brain. The key circuits, especially the ones that handle things like danger and reward, are still developing. This means they can physically experience stress on a much higher level. And at the same time, there can be differences in the brain chemicals that regulate mood, like serotonin and dopamine.
So this all leads to the million-dollar question, right? The one that every parent or caregiver asks. Is my kid just being a moody teenager, or is this something I should actually be worried about? Let's break down how to tell the difference.
Well, the good news is experts give us a pretty clear rule of thumb here. It boils down to two things: duration and impact. First, how long have these changes been going on? Are we talking weeks or even months? And second, are they getting in the way of your daily life? You know, school, friendships, family stuff. If the answer to both is yes, then it's time to start paying closer attention.
Okay, let's really put this side by side because this is where it gets practical. Look, occasional irritability, totally normal. But frequent angry blow-ups, that's a red flag. It's normal for a teen's interest to change, but losing interest in literally everything they used to love? That's a real concern. Needing more sleep is just part of being a teenager, but sleeping way too much or barely at all is a warning sign. And finally, wanting some privacy is normal, but completely withdrawing from everyone and everything? That's not.
And on top of those, there are some other really serious symptoms to keep an eye out for. Things like just being exhausted all the time, having a really hard time concentrating, any kind of self-harm, or turning to drugs or alcohol. And, of course, the big one. If a teen is talking about deep sadness, hopelessness, or suicide, that needs immediate attention, no question.
Okay, so spotting the signs, that is absolutely the critical first step. But what happens next? Let's talk about the path forward, what it looks like to get a diagnosis and find the right treatment.
The path forward really starts with reaching out to a professional. First, they're going to want to do a full evaluation to make sure there isn't some other medical issue, like a thyroid problem, causing the symptoms. And from there, they'll work with you and your teen to come up with a treatment plan. And what we know is that these are often most effective when they combine talk therapy with, in some cases, medication. All right, now if medication is part of the plan, it's really important to know this. The FDA has specifically approved only 2 antidepressants for minors.
The first is fluoxetine, which you might know as Prozac for kids 8 and older. And the second is escitalopram, or Lexapro, for those 12 and up. And this next part is absolutely crucial for any parents or caregiver to hear. The FDA requires all antidepressants to have a specific warning. It states that there can be an increased risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviors in kids, teens, and young adults up to age 24. And that's exactly why doctors and caregivers have to be super vigilant, especially when these medications are first started.
Okay, so whether you're a teen listening to this, or a parent, or a friend who's worried, what can you actually do? This final section is all about actionable steps you can take to support yourself and the people you care about. First, if you're a teen who's going through it right now, please know that even small steps can make a huge difference. Getting active, even just a short walk every day, can help. Fueling your body with healthy food, trying to get regular sleep, these things really matter. When things feel overwhelming, try breaking big tasks into smaller, manageable chunks. And the biggest one? Ask for help. Seriously, it's not a sign of weakness, it is the ultimate sign of strength.
And for all the parents and caregivers out there, the number one thing you can do is take this seriously. Help your teen find a therapist they actually feel comfortable with. Gently encourage them to do healthy things like getting some exercise or seeing friends. And maybe help them find a healthy outlet for all those feelings, whether it's journaling, a creative hobby, or maybe a support group with other teens who get it.
And all of this really brings us to our final question, and honestly, it might be the most important one of all. We've talked about signs and treatments, but maybe the biggest hurdle is just the stigma around it. So what's it going to take for us, in our own homes, in our schools, in our communities, to make talking about mental health just as normal as talking about a broken arm? That's the thought we want to leave you with.